we're actually launching Alpha AI in the next month. Basically, your AI investing companion or your AI friend for everyone.
Kevin, thank you so much for joining the show. You are founder and CEO of AfterHour, which is a social trading platform. I use the app. So listeners that haven't used it, the kind of way I describe it is I go in there, I'm looking or considering buying a retail stock. I go in, you click on that, you can dive quite deep. There are community discussion forums. You can actually click on individual pseudonyms as well to really understand whether someone has actually put their money where their mouth is when they're opining on a stock. So it adds this whole new layer of trust and transparency, which is awesome. And before the business, we're going to get into the founding story a little bit later on, but you were an engineer at Google and Stripe. And also just kind of curious as well, for the rest of this conversation, your pseudonym on AfterHour is Sir Jack. You're obviously Kevin in front of you right now. How should I refer to you?
Call me Kevin.
Call you Kevin.
I'm like, face revealed and everything.
Okay. Look, maybe let's just start with retail investing. It's been through an interesting journey over the last 10 years or so. We've had zero commission trading, we've had mobile trading, then we've had community forums, we've had kind of Reddit explode with these, and now obviously social trading with AfterHour being a main player within that space. Can you just give us a little bit of a primer as to what's been happening within retail trading and why social trading is becoming so big and important?
Sure. I mean, if you really kind of look back at the last like 30, 40, 50 years, it's gotten easier and easier to invest, to be an investor, right? Like back in the 90s, you still had to like watch the TV, read a newspaper, and call your broker to like make a trade. And now with the internet and with mobile apps, like it's just got so much more easier. Like the tooling, right, has gotten easier. And yet the education, and I would even argue the ability to know what to do is still lacking, right? Financial education in a nutshell. Like you download Robinhood and you're like, now what, right? Like what's a stock? What do I hear people talk about buy and sell, but I don't know what else to do. Like, is this a good trade or is this a bad trade? Most people don't have anyone they could turn to. So they end up turning to social networks. And I think the major thing that changed in 2020 was what I call the memification of stocks, of the stock market, the memification of Wall Street. Like Wall Street's always been like this very serious industry, right? Like people wear suits to work. You watch CNBC, there's all these talking heads. And it always felt like a holier than thou kind of feeling, like, oh yeah, the plebes, you guys don't know this. We have our fancy Bloomberg terminals. Leave it up to us, the professionals. You guys can, mutual funds are kind of disrupting them in a way. But to me, it always felt like, this was a game that you were not supposed to play. Like, how can you ever compete with the hedge funds and the quants out there, right? And for me, my big kind of radicalization, I guess, my epiphany was really discovering a thread on Wall Street Bets where somebody made like $500,000 overnight on options calls, right? Obviously, that's kind of like headliney, it grabs your attention, all that kind of stuff. But when I was reading the comments, people were openly talking about what happened, why this was happening, how they could find the next trade, right? And so I've never taken a class. I've never read a book. I've never paid for a webinar or anything like that. I learned everything I know about investing from Wall Street Bets, from Reddit, from hanging out on Twitter and X, because people were openly talking about their trades and strategies. But the biggest problem I had was I didn't know who was, real versus fake, right? Like I had to use a lot of my spidey senses and read a lot of comments and look through like the punctuation and look through their history to tell like, is this guy bluffing and just like bragging, or is there actually some truth to it, right? I would like DM people. Like my big thing was around GameStop. I was noticing all these folks. This was months before the squeeze, and I noticed some folks were talking about GameStop, showing their like $100,000, $200,000 position, and I ended up DMing them, be like, "Yo, is that for real? Like, are you for real?" And they would show me other screenshots, and we get into like a little back and forth, and I'm like, "Oh, this was actually like a real person with some real skin in the game." And so I'm credited for being the very first whale in GameStop. I put in $1.3 million at a time into GameStop when it was only like $10 and 33 cents or something. Around October, November before the January squeeze.
Can we just talk about that quickly? So, I mean, that's a lot of money to put into a stock. Were you investing on the thesis that this sort of frustration, right? Wall Street have locked us out, and we have a chance to lift a big middle finger to them. Was that the underlying thesis that retail investors would follow you, and it's sort of relatively emotionally driven? Or were you also looking at the fundamentals of the business and its performance and whether it was undervalued? I'm just trying to really understand what this meme stock investing is actually underpinned by.
Yeah. So as background, my trading style is extremely simple. They would call me a swing trader, but essentially I would just go all in one single stock at a time. Like no options, no margin, nothing fancy. Literally just going all in one single stock at a time. Because my view is like, you want to study a stock as much as possible. You want to know everything about them, right? And if you have strong conviction, why not just go all in, watch it like a hawk, try to sell, for some profit, make sure you don't take too much of a loss, and then, stay in cash until the next one. And so that was extremely profitable, especially during the 2020 to 21 era. I would argue, still now it's effective. You look at how much some companies like Robinhood and Palantir, Nvidia, and Opendoor, recently had a bit of a squeeze. Those were all, actually pretty obvious in hindsight. I made those calls on AfterHour, if you remember.
I do actually follow you there.
Yeah. So, but to your question around, the meme stock, I mean, GameStop had a very interesting and unique thesis. It was 140% short interest ratio, right? So, like, that's just, what does that even mean? That means it was, shorted more than shares existed, right? And to me, that was two things. That was one was like Wall Street just like unfairly punishing this stock, this company that doesn't seem like it's going to go bankrupt. At the time, the Xbox One Series S and the PS4 was coming out, or 5, and that's it was a good time for it to come resurgence. And then yes, it was kind of compounded by this thesis that like, oh, if it breaks through a couple of like psychological barriers, then these shorts would have to cover, which means buying the shares on the open market. And if there's not that much liquidity, then it might drive up some crazy short squeeze, right?
Are we in a position now where you can actually track the performance of social trades versus non-social trades?
What do you mean?
I'm just trying to work out whether, like, take AfterHour for an example.
Yeah.
That all of the trades placed through AfterHour as a result of social belief and learning through a community have yielded more impressive results than the alternative. I'm not entirely sure what the alternative might be, right, in today's world, but I'm just interested whether you can actually map the performance of the community versus other forms.
We are the only platform that combines both quantitative and qualitative analysis of the stock market, right? Because all the other, traditional fintech, they see the volumes, they see the order flow, but they don't capture the sentiment. Right? They don't capture like when were people bullish, why were they bullish. You can go to platforms like Reddit and X where people are talking about stocks using cash tags and stuff, but you don't know how much money they actually have it in. There was one guy recently I roasted. He was talking a big game about Snapchat, about how he thinks Snapchat's undervalued, and I replied like, "What's your position?" Right? Like, what's the point of writing this tweet if you're not, what do you have, like $20 in it or something? Show some real, skin in the game, right? Like I do when I post my $1 million positions in some stock or not. So I think that is incredibly valuable. I think it is hard to track the exact story arcs of social trading, just because it's a catch-22 where like, the story's not interesting until it is, right? Like I called Opendoor at 50 cents, like no one was talking about it back then, right? Now at $10, everyone's talking about it, right? Or $2, everyone's talking about it. So it's hard. To me, for my particular style of trading, I like to find good opportunities, what I call 2 standard deviations before the rest of the world catches on, right? Because I don't like to chase. I don't like to, if a stock is already doubled, sure, it could double again, and many stocks have, but there's a risk it doesn't, and it falls, and you lose money, right? And so I like to catch stocks before they have the run up. And so I call it, something like 2 standard deviations before the rest of the world catches on.
So you're a very active trader, right? You're doing your own analysis. So actually, the way I should think about this is a bit different. Where I was thinking here, I don't invest a lot of time into thinking through public stocks. If I were to go on AfterHour and start trading materially, then I would
Yeah.
be exporting a lot of my decision making through towards people where they've actually put money where their mouth is. Now, clearly, they may be writing $100,000 checks, which is way more than I'd be investing. Therefore, I would think, well, actually, they're kind of materially putting their money where their mouth is. But for them, that might be kind of a relatively little amount of money. So my question is actually, it's almost the inverse of following the community, and more should be trying to find more use. People who are really spending a lot more time, and in a sense, you're like a traditional fund manager, right? You would export or import somebody else's knowledge. How do people find more use? How do AfterHour actually enable people to find people that are very good, not just looking at your position, but are actually good at it?
Yeah. I think the number one thing that the biggest insight I had back in after back in the day was that you need a community, you need a density of high quality traders in order to make a community actually active, right? Because it can't just revolve around one creator. Like one creator is just not making enough content or trades every day to really keep an audience satisfied, right? Like right now, consumer apps, we're all competing against the swiping, dopamines, cat videos, dancing videos on TikTok, and no matter what, to me, it's about the more time you spend on an app like AfterHour, the more educated you become, the more up to date on all the trends you become, right? And the golden nuggets soon do reveal themselves as long as you think for yourself. I think this is actually the tricky part with AfterHour today, because it's so big now. It's actually started to become less beginner friendly. A lot of times new people will download the app and ask me like, Kevin, where do I get started? Like, who are all these people? What are all these tickers? What's the story? What's the story here? It feels like entering season 5 of a TV show, and most people who are, people are busy. People have other things going on. They don't have time to go through and comb back through all the posts and do searches and read through all the comments for like why this guy posted about open door 5 months ago, right? Like most people just don't have the time for that. And so as we've been exploring how to make AfterHour better, more beginner accessible, more beginner friendly, we realized actually AI is a perfect solution for this. There is nothing simpler than texting a friend, and everybody wants to chat with me. Like obviously, I'm the founder of the app. Everyone knows who I am. I do all the marketing. But like over the last few months, just everybody wants to chat with me, ask me like what's on my mind, what I'm holding, whatever like that. And I would just be spending all day, answering questions, right? So that's like definitely not scalable. I also don't know everything. People would ask me like, oh, what do you think of like Alibaba stock? I'm like, I've never looked at it, so I don't know. But with with AI hooked up to AfterHour, right, powered by AfterHour, it can read through everything that's kind of going on, both quantitatively and qualitatively, and actually give you proper alerts, answer all your questions, tell you, new ideas, look at your portfolio, tell you what's good and what's bad that's going on in a super accessible way, right? It's a chat bot. It's like texting a friend. So this is actually, you see my name here, like we're actually launching Alpha AI in the next month. Basically your AI investing companion or your AI friend for everyone.
Let's go through that now then. So can you just start with the AfterHour product as it exists today and the extension with Alpha AI?
Yeah. So AfterHour is a social network for traders. Our main unique element is that people connect their brokerages. So we have over $500 million of brokerages connected and publicly shared. And so people are sharing their live positions, trades. You could go to anyone's profile and see exactly what they're holding. And it's a super lively community, and we have group chats as well. Like I said, as we grew, it became hard. It became less beginner friendly. Right, people would open the app, you'd be like, "What's going on here?" And there's tweaks you could make to onboarding, there's tweaks you could make to the feed algo and other kind of new user experience type things. But all of that felt like a local maxima. That still felt like trying to put a small band-aid. It felt like there must be a better way to make it much more accessible, right? And the insight here came from actually me doing a lot of marketing on Instagram. So I started posting a lot on Instagram. going viral a few times and talking about my investments, talking about the app. And I would get flooded with comments and DMs, be like, "Hey, I've always wanted to learn. How do I get started? Hey, can you teach me? Like, hey, like what I just bought my first stock. What's this mean? You know, like a lot of like tons of beginner questions." And I could say like Google it. I could say like use ChatGPT, right? I could like say go post on After Hour. Maybe somebody will reply to you. But everybody just wanted to text me. People just wanted to chat with me. And so the insight here came from like fundamentally, this is the reason why ChatGPT and all these chatbots work. There's nothing simpler than chatting with a friend. We've all been trained to use iMessage and WhatsApp and all these apps now, right? And it's really good at this. So especially if it's plugged into the real-time market feeds, if it knows your portfolio and remembers your interests, and fundamentally, especially if it talks like a friend. Like a lot of these chatbots today, they talk in like overly verbose, 30-page essays with M dashes, etc. And most people can't take that. Like if you try asking ChatGPT why is Open Door up, it's going to give you like a long essay and like only like one sentence inside that matters. Versus if you ask me, why is Open Door up, right? I'll tell you that like, oh yeah, they have a new CEO, right? And everyone loves him. Like a simple 1 to 2 sentence, right? And same thing with everything. Like, then you go like, oh, why does that matter? And I'll reply back to you like a friend saying like, oh, that's because this new CEO wants to reshape, blah, 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 right? Because I, spend time scanning the internet, reading these news, and report back to you in a clear and simple 1 to 2 sentences. And no other financial, investment co-pilot or anything like this works like that today. And so that's why we decided to embark on building Alpha AI. It's going to be inside After Hour, so you could actually trigger it by mentioning @Alpha or @Alpha in chat, or in comments, similar to Grok. And it'll also be available as its own standalone app, because I think people also want that immediate accessibility to talk to Alpha in that kind of private one-to-one environment.
And it'll be trained on or provide the aggregate summary of the community discussion within the After Hour app, or is this an extension of, is this Kevin V2?
It has context, right? It has financial context. It has access to all the fundamental data that's out there. It has access to real-time sentiment across After Hour, but also including Reddit and X. And it has context of your portfolio and the trades that you're making. So it has a lot of context that all these other general purpose, LMs and chatbots don't have. Second, it's got a friend design, right? So it's not like this kind of like, logo or amorphous blog you kind of talk to. We purposely created this character called an alpha. It's actually a species. You could personalize it, give it its own name. And it's got like a very friendly chat bubble UI, very similar to iMessage. And most importantly, it remembers you, right? It remembers your portfolio, remembers your interests, remembers your experience level, remembers your risk tolerance. The memory has actually been a big unlock in just like kind of chatbots over the last year. And we think this is a really strong applicable use case for especially beginners, because not everybody wants the advanced stuff, right? Like maybe there's some people on After Hour that want all the advanced options and levels and all that kind of stuff. But for beginners, they don't even know what an option is, right? They just want to know like, there's earnings today. Why does earnings even matter, right? Like what is the EPS? What is it? Like they have all these basic questions, and if you're stuck in like in a community where most of the louder people are more power users, these beginners start feeling like, oh, my questions, my voice is not getting answered. And so again, AI is perfect for that. And then finally, it's proactive. It actually is scanning the entire internet and web of financial data and trying to stay on top of it for you.
It's really interesting because one of your insights, I guess, is around education, really, and confidence building, which also places you in a position where there are people who are quite susceptible, almost vulnerable to the type of advice that they are receiving. Are you regulated? I mean, how does that work? And also on a company sort of macro level, you're dealing with significant sums of retail capital now that market manipulation is probably not quite there yet, but there's a world in which your AI could start to drive meaningful swings in smaller stocks, perhaps. How do you think about that puzzle?
Yeah, I mean, there is a clear kind of group of easily manipulable stocks, right? That's just easy to measure. Penny stocks, anything with low liquidity, low volume, option contracts. It runs the gambit. And I've been in these, scammy pump and dump groups. It's despicable the kind of scams they run. Just pure lying, saying I'm still holding when they already bought into, everything. You just provide some guardrails. right? Like again, most people are coming to After Hour and coming to Alpha really to get educated, really to learn about how can I, what is going on in the market. Someone interpret this for me, right? Like even for me, like when Trump tweets something, I don't always know whether that's like a good thing or a bad thing. I rely also on the wisdom of the crowds, right? Looking into the comments and the chatter to see like, oh, is this good or bad, right? Like I don't know. Fundamentally, I mean, what even is the market? The market is a sentiment weighing machine, right? It is roughly saying like, okay, 51% of whatever voices, either numerically or weighted by money, believe that this is a positive nudge on this company, right? This piece of news is positive that way, and so it's all sentiment and people's opinions at the end of the day. Like we don't actually know how it affects the revenue numbers until next quarter. So if everything in between quarters is just people's feelings. And so, again, what does it mean to empower? What does it mean to empower a beginner? It's patiently answering questions. It's talking in a very simple and easy to understand manner, right? And it is interpreting the market for you, right? Whether you come in with a question or the market did something and that might be interesting to you, right? Like that's the thing. That's the problem I have with a lot of these other AI finance bots. Like the examples are always these like very rare questions I ever have. Like do a earnings analysis of Apple quarter over quarter, right? Like I never do that, right? Or like plan a retirement plan for me until the next 30 years. Like that's like a one-off thing, right? And that's not enough in a consumer world to create a DAU. And I think DAU